Howdy, y'all. The stream is starting. All right. I think, howdy, howdy, howdy. I think we're ready to go. I think I have the things I'm concerned about locked, locked up on lock. I'm finishing my breakfast. So pardon me. As you can see, I have a bit of an agenda for today. For if there aren't, for when there aren't questions to answer right off the bat. There's no questions waiting in the form or my email inbox. Okay. I've had several students since the last stream. I'm looking through my records. That's kind of nice. All right. So, howdy, y'all. My name's Ryan. I'm the calculus tutor. This is the Sunday Chill stream. I stream right now 3 days a week, and on stream, I answer math questions that people submit. I assume it's going to be a lot of like homework questions. It seems to me that in the world, or at least in the part of the world I'm in, the math questions that people have, like if you just look at all of the math questions that all of the people have, I think most of them are probably homework questions because we have so many students in school, or like, everybody under 18 for the most part is in school, and therefore probably taking a math class, working on some math. And many of those people have math questions at various times. So I think at any given time, if you look at the total number of math questions that people have, I think the majority of them are probably homework questions. Obviously, I haven't studied that. I have no data to back that up, but just looking at the distributions of people and where, where people are working on math. Anyway, so I assume people are going to send in homework questions, and that's totally fine. That's, ultimately that's the the base premise for this. But if you have other math questions just from life, or you want to look at something, you want somebody to help you look at something through a mathematical lens, or you're legitimately trying to solve a problem in your life, you're trying to build a deck, or you know um I helped a graphic designer, this was a couple years ago, figure out the geometry of a label to wrap around a container that was sloped downwards. So you know how when you go to the store and you buy, I don't know, things in tubs, things like sour cream or cream cheese, things like that. Lots of dairy products, I guess. But anything that comes in a little or even a big tub, it's almost always sloped inwards. Um, I imagine there's manufacturing reasons for that, stability reasons, all sorts of stuff. But anyway, that slope shape means it's not a cylinder. So, like a can, when you make a label, you can just make a rectangular label, wrap it or slap it on, wrap it around. It fits perfectly. But when the sides are sloped, a rectangle won't work. You'll have to fold it on top of itself to get it to fit, or tear it, like, right. But you can make one single shape. It just has to be like a very sort of subtle, like not subtle, but like partial, like arc, a rainbow type thing. Yeah, and then that'll wrap around just fine. But you have to know but there's like geometry to it. So uh, yeah, so there's people run into math questions in their life all the time, and unfortunately, our school system has not set up our population for success. People that decide they like math, or decide they want to focus on math, those people end up learning a lot and end up having math as a tool available to them, and almost nobody else does, which is really unfortunate. It'd be it really feels to me as if we let people just decide that they didn't want to learn how to read, and that they would just avoid reading in their life. Um, can you imagine trying to navigate the world and not knowing how to read? Um, that's what I feel like a lot of people are doing with math, and it doesn't feel burdensome to them necessarily until those very specific moments where it is. But I don't know. I think they're not realizing all the things they're missing out on. But anyway, that's what I hope to ease here. I hope to make math more approachable, make you feel like you can do math. And math is for everybody. It's not just for math people. As you can see, something I want to talk about here. Um, oh, here, let's do that. Let's do boop. Sure, that makes more sense to me. All right, so do you have a math question, a homework question, a question from your life, something you'd just like me to talk through, or you'd like to discuss from a mathematical perspective? Um, how do you send that question to me? Well, you go to thecalculustutor.com. So let's talk about that. Oh, everything's got to reload. Nope, I have to actually hit the share button. I know how to use my tools. Let's go back here, make sure the screen share actually propagates into the stream. There we go. Okay. That's my old tab. So you go to thecalculustutor.com. This is what you'll see. Uh-oh, what did I do? Sorry about that. I clicked on the wrong button and then moved crazy places in the notes file. All right, I'm back. So here's the calculustutor.com. You can see there's a banner at the top that says that I'm live. You can either, if you want to submit a question, you need to get to the streaming page. So you can either click that banner. That banner always takes you to the streaming page. Even when I'm not currently streaming it, it'll be there saying that I'm not streaming, but it'll still take you to the streaming page. Anyway, scroll down a little bit and you'll see this little streaming section where you can actually see the feed of the live stream right here. You can click on it and start watching it. Um, you're obviously already watching it. Here's the submit a question button. So you can tap that, and this will take you to the streaming page. And it'll scroll you down to the submit a question section. There you go, streaming page, scroll you down. There you go, submit math questions. You can see there's a question submission form, or email your question to ryan@calculustutor.com, right? So there's always that sort of backup direct option. Just shoot me an email. Here's what to include in your email. I would recommend using the form though. So let's tap that. And now for me, it pulled the form right up because I'm already signed into a Google account. For you, if you're not currently signed into a Google account, when you tap that button, it'll pop up a login screen first. You do have to be logged into a Google account to use this form. That's a Google requirement because the form lets you submit files, and Google, for safety and tracking and stuff like that, requires that people be signed into a Google account if they're going to submit files. And I sort of get that. I don't love it, but I sort of get it, and it ends up making what I'm trying to do here actually work a little bit nicer, because then I'll have your email address and I can email you back when I've answered your question. That way you don't have to actually watch the live stream live. You can just wait till I answer your question, and then I'll email you back. I'll send you a link to the timestamp in the VOD, the recording of the live stream. I'll send you a timestamp to the particular place in the live stream where I answered your question, and I'll send you a link to the particular place in the notes file where the notes I wrote down when I was answering your question live. So it ends up working out. Regardless, you have to sign into a Google account. If you try to use your school Google account, and it may tell you still can't access it because I'm not inside your school Google network. If that's the case, just email me. If you think of it, tell me in your email that you tried the form and it didn't work. And if you tell me what school district you're with, I'll reach out to them and see if I can get the form put on like a whitelist or something so people can access it. But anyway, try the form. You'll definitely have success if you use a personal Google account. You might have success if you use a school Google account. Regardless, once you get signed in, this is the form you'll see. A little reminder that you can just email me if you want to. A little place for you to check and say, yeah, this is my email address and I understand it's being recorded. And then tell me who you are. This doesn't have to be your real name, just how you want me to refer to you while I'm answering your question, right? I'll say like, oh, this question was submitted by such and such. This would be a fine place to tell me your pronouns as well. Otherwise, I'll just end up using they. And I am going to end up using, I'll end up referring to you and sort of talking to you and about the question you asked and stuff during the stream. So anyway, send me your pronouns if you care. Otherwise, I'll just probably use they. Where did this question come from? My thinking here, like I said at the top, I think most of the questions I'm going to get are going to be homework questions. So my thinking here is tell me the teacher and the class, right? So Miss Smith's geostats, Mix Anderson's calculus. And that way that'll help me organize stuff and then because it'll help me organize stuff, it'll help other students like have access to a database where they can search through answers. And ultimately what I'd like to accumulate is, especially, I'm really trying to focus this service locally to where I'm at, like the town I'm in Eugene, Oregon. And my hope is to, over time, sort of build up a library of the math questions, the math problems that students in this area get assigned. Because all of the algebra classes in all of the high schools in town give nearly the same assignments At least all of the algebra classes within a single school almost always give a lot of the same assignments. Even the colleges reuse assignments and problems and stuff like that, right? It's just simpler. If they had to make brand new math problems for every single class they taught every single term, that would just be so much work. Anyway, so yeah, tell me where the question came from. That helps me organize. But again, really simple, just teacher in class. If it's not a homework problem, give me a little blurb, doesn't even have to be a full sentence, a little blurb about how that problem, how you came upon that math question. That just helps give me a little bit of context. All right, the important bit here, what is your question? Now, you do not need to retype the entire math problem here. Oh my God, would that be a pain in the butt, right? Because at the end here, you're going to be able to attach images. So my thinking is you'll just be able to take a picture of the math problem, and that's how you'll send me the math problem. So you don't have to retype any of that stuff, because I know typing out math is a pain, and if it's a big long problem, that would be even more of a pain. But no, you're going to take a picture and attach that. Which means it might be easier to just fill out this form on your phone. So you can just take a picture and then click add file, and then you can just access your camera roll. So what are you supposed to put here when it says, what is your question? It does say be as specific as possible. This is for you to tell me what your question about that math problem is. So first of all, direct me to where the problem is. You might have noticed down here, you can submit a PDF as well, or an image. So maybe you take a picture of your entire textbook page or your entire worksheet page, or your teacher assigns you a packet that's just on Canvas as a PDF. So you download the whole PDF and just send me the whole PDF. So one of the things you put here is direct me to the particular problem. So if it's like a PDF, you might tell me page 3, or if it's not a PDF, tell me what problem number it is, right? Number 19. That just helps me find the exact problem you want me to work on. And if it's a group of problems, it's a whole type of problem. You're like, I don't know how to do this type of problem. You can tell me that too. You're like page 3, 19 through 26 or something like that, right? Just if it's just a type of problem you want help with rather than one specific problem. But now here's the place where you can be specific, and you can direct me to what you actually need the most help with, right? So maybe these problems I made up, 19 through 26 here, maybe what's giving you trouble is I don't know how to graph when there are fractions, right? Maybe it's an equation, it has fractions in it, and you're supposed to graph it. Maybe that's the entire problem. So, you're just telling me, yeah, that's the fact that these have fractions is what's giving me trouble. Maybe only part of the problem is about graphing. And this tells me what you'd really like me to focus on is the graphing part. I'll probably still go through the entire problem just for completeness, but I will, in doing that, if it seems like a really long problem, though, I won't. I will just focus on the part you've asked me about. Unless you tell me, can you go through the whole problem, but please focus on the graphing or something. So maybe it's, you say, I don't know how to graph when there are fractions. Maybe it's, we haven't, or, I don't know how to take the derivative of tangent. If you're not in calculus, and if you haven't gotten to where you've talked about trig functions in geometry, this question might make no sense to you, but that's totally okay. It's an example of what you could tell me. Like this, and this right here, and now when I go to look at the problem, I know what to focus on here. That the thing you feel like you're struggling with is the derivative of tangent. So that's what this section is for. Notice both of the examples I gave there were a single sentence, I didn't even put a period at the end, right? So it was an incomplete sentence. That's I'm trying to demonstrate here that you don't need to put a whole bunch there, just a tiny little bit to help direct me to how I can be the most helpful to you. Um, we'll skip this. Can I share your work on stream right here? Um, we'll come back to it though. Because here's the images. So the goal with the images is to send me the problem, right? But you want to be clear and complete in doing that. So clear means make sure all the text is legible, make sure it's not too blurry, too dark, or too blown out. Those are the big things. Um, and it doesn't have to be perfect. I can read text that's a little bit blurry. I can read text that's a little darker, a little blown out, or even quite a bit. Uh, I guess my point is though, if I can't read it, I can't help you, right? But I will try. I will do my best. Um, the other thing is make sure you're using images to send me a complete idea of the problem. Make sure your images themselves are complete. So part of that just means make sure the part of the problem isn't cropped out. That happens sometimes. It's super easy to make that happen. You get too focused on making sure the text is clear and you don't realize, oh shoot, I just cut off the last third of the problem. But the other part of being complete means that you also send me the instructions. Sometimes an assignment has instructions that apply to the whole problem, but if you just isolate one problem, it's not clear what those instructions are. But oftentimes in textbooks or on worksheets, there's a little block of instructions for like 4 or 6 problems, and then another block of instructions for the next like 10 problems or something, right? So make sure your picture either includes that block of instructions or take an additional picture and send that just of the block of instructions. In addition to that, if there's diagrams or charts or graphs or even little images um, that go along with the problem, make sure your picture includes those or take an additional picture and send it. Even if you think it might not be useful, send it along because I might be able to show you how it is useful. That which includes blank coordinate axes that you're supposed to graph on, blank tables that you're supposed to fill out, uh, you know, blank or partial diagrams that you're supposed to fill out, that sort of thing. If you send those along with the problem, I will use them in my notes so that the work I'm doing reflects the work that you're supposed to do, right? And so you don't have to translate between the way I did it and how maybe you're supposed to do it, given that the coordinate axis I used was different. Um, right? Because oftentimes in these homework problems, if you're given like a coordinate axis, it's a really crappy little coordinate axis, so it makes it really tough sometimes. I will show you how I don't want to just show you how to do the math. I want to help you navigate doing math, including using the crappy little diagrams that math problems sometimes have and stuff like that. So yeah, send me the whole problem, I guess is my point. And then the other thing to send, if you have it, is an image of any work you've already done related to that problem. Now, maybe you tried the problem and you got stuck, or you got an answer at the end, but you checked it and it was wrong, and you're not sure why, and you're not sure how to get the right answer. Still send me that work. Um, or maybe you're asking me about problem 18, but you did number 17 just fine. Send me a picture of your work for number 17 so I can see your process, because I want to lean into your instincts. Um, as you get into higher and higher levels of math, there becomes multiple ways to do any one problem, multiple ways to approach it, multiple places to start, things like that. And so as often as I can, I try to lean into my students' instincts and build upon those rather than try to give them brand new instincts, right? So if you haven't done a similar problem, if you did problems in class similar to it, like you took notes and did those all together, sending that along, because that tells me what your teacher is hoping you'll do. That tells me what you've been exposed to in class. Um, So anything you can send me, and it just has to be one image. You don't have to send me a whole bunch of stuff. And in fact, I'd prefer you don't. One or maybe two images of your work related to that problem, whether it's related to that specific problem, um, another problem of the same variety, notes about that topic or that type of problem, um, as as closely related as you can. I understand though, most people are not going to want their math work broadcast on the internet for other people to see. A lot of people are self-conscious about their math work. They don't feel confident in it. That's why you're messaging me, right? I assume. So, my promise to you is that your work will not show up on stream. Um, if you the image you send me of the problem, I will probably use that directly in the notes. I'll probably copy paste it directly into the notes. The diagrams you send, I'll probably copy paste those directly in the notes, unless you've already done some work on them, right? Then my promise to not show your work on stream supersedes that, and I will rewrite the problem. I'll retype it. I will redraw the diagrams, various things like that, right? I will do that to keep my promise to you. Now, if there's a little bit of scratch work at the edges or something, but you can't really tell what the person's process was or anything like that, that'll probably still stay in. I'll try to crop a lot of it out. But there might still be a few stray marks, but I'm not trying to display your personal math process and your mistakes. People are really self-conscious about their mistakes. I don't think you should be, but I understand that people are. Um, so yeah, that's my promise to you. Because it truly, truly is helpful for you to send that work in. It helps me understand where you're coming from just a little bit better. And that little bit of extra understanding helps me improve my answer to you and my response to your question a ton. I've been doing this a long time, not this specifically, but work related to it. And and I, and yeah, I've asked for that because I know it's helpful. Anyway, you can attach up to 5 images. So I think there should be plenty of space there for you to attach a picture of the problem, any instructions, diagrams, and a picture of your own work. Plus, and then you have one extra picture for if there's something extra you need to send. Um, yeah, that's the process. Right back up here, this can I share your work on stream? Right. Notice it's a checkbox that's by default unchecked. You don't have to check it. And I encourage you not to check it. However, I do need it there because at a certain level of math, as you get into higher and higher levels of math, the problems become so involved and each like as you get to higher levels of math, instead of having like 20 or 40 homework problems, you have like 3, right? Because you're learning how to apply the math and how to do a whole process. And because of that, for those students, if they want help, um, I know one type of help that I've given and have asked for and things like that myself is for somebody to go through my work and essentially critique it, kind of go line by line and say, "Oh, this looks good. Huh? Why did you do this?" And just sort of critique it and give advice for how to do things more efficiently or how if you're doing a process kind of incorrectly or something, um, to help people realize that. So that's a form of help I've given before, and I understand how useful it is. So I want to create space for people to still ask for that type of help. So I needed a way for people to opt in to letting me show their work on stream, because for those people, that's about the only way I can give that sort of help in this fashion. But for students at that level, oftentimes they don't care. In my experience, at least, they don't care if other people see their work. People are seeing their work in class. They're showing their work to their friends and their peers. You just you as you get higher and higher in math, you sort of lose some of that self consciousness. Not completely, and not all people, but a lot of times. Anyway, so that's what that's there for. For most high school students, even most university students, I imagine you'll leave that box unchecked. There would probably be no reason for me to show your work on stream. Yeah, that's how you submit questions. That's how you participate in these math help streams. Um, if we go back to the to the website here. There we go. Yeah, you can also just email me your questions right into calculustutor.com. These guidelines, you might notice, they're all the exact same things I asked for on the form. Your name, however you want me to refer to you when I answer your question, where the problem came from. I'm thinking teacher and class, right? Or some otherwise small little indicator of how you came upon the question, your specific question, and then just a reminder to attach images. In email, you can attach more images. So yeah, it's all the same stuff. When I answer your questions, um, you'll be able to see me work through it in the notes. I'm not sharing the note screen right now. I'm sharing the website, but this button right here, that will take you to the notes so you can browse through them. And that way, because when I'm streaming, you can only see what I'm choosing to include in my screen share, right? And so if the thing you're looking at, I scroll off screen, you'll either have to like buffer back the video and then miss what I'm currently talking about. It's such a pain in the butt, right? So it'd be way easier if you could just go to the notes yourself. And that's what this button is for. Go to notes. It's also up here in the header menu, math notes right there. And that'll always jump you to the current set of notes. Well, the current file. Yeah, that's how you participate. You submit questions, you you watch either live or you watch the VOD. That's really nice. You don't have to participate in this live. You can submit questions anytime. It doesn't matter whether I'm live or not. You can submit a question at 3 in the morning. Um, it'll just come through in the form or come through in my email and just be sitting there waiting for me, and I will answer it during my next scheduled live stream. Um, but you don't even have to watch it live to benefit, because I will, after the stream and after I've answered your question, I will then just email you and say, "Hey, I responded to your question on stream today. Here's the link to the timestamp in the VOD, so you can just jump directly to it. Here's a link to the location in the notes, the specific location in the notes file, that's relevant for your question." And you didn't even have to. This is just a service you used as it was convenient for you. You didn't have to worry about the timing of it all, right? Um, if you were more interested in having a discussion about the question, then yeah, it would be useful for you to attend the live stream live, because then you can pop into chat, ask clarifying questions, ask follow-up questions, that sort of stuff. Um, But even that you don't have to do synchronously, because when I respond to you and send you your stuff and you look through it and you watch the little bit of the VOD that refers to your question. If you have clarifying or follow-up questions, you can just email me back, right? Um, or submit another question or a related question or whatever. Um, so yeah, that is the Homework Help live stream. That's how you participate. That's what we're doing here. Um, so let's go back to the notes. Oops, I do that here. So this is the notes file. And yeah, as you can see, right, you can only see a small portion of it, whatever portion I'm currently screen sharing. But if you click the notes link, to go to the notes, it just takes you to this whole file, and you can scroll around and sort of see how the sausage gets made a little bit. You can see all of my little elements up there that don't normally show up on screen because they're up above. Yeah, and you can scroll back through all the days, see what's going on. Yeah, and that way you can look more specifically at the things I'm working on. It's only, so you don't have to worry about messing anything up. Students I work with one-on-one, even each student I work with one-on-one has their own file, and even they get nervous sometimes about messing with it. They don't want to like break anything, and I tell them, even though they can edit stuff, they're not going to break stuff. You don't have to worry about breaking anything because you can't edit it at all. um, so yeah, but mm, actually, yeah, I think though, people who visit, I will be able to see their cursors. Um, and so you could potentially tell me, like, get in here, look at the notes, and like if you have a question about something specific, even though you can't like circle it or anything, I think you could use your cursor to point to specific stuff. I'm not sure. If you can't edit, I don't know if I can see your cursor. If I can see viewers' cursors. I realize I haven't tested that out now. Um, so yeah, I will test that out at some point. Okay. Um, that's how you participate. That's what we're doing here. We are well into it now. Oh, hot stream will begin soon. The stream has begun. Um, so there's our schedule or our agenda. First of all, winter break schedule. Here, I think we can just get rid of that. Oh, oops. Ba, ba, ba. There we go. Excellent. There we go. Winter break schedule. So next stream will be Sunday, December 28th. No streams on Wednesday until after the um, after the 28th. Hold on, let me make sure I have my days right. Streaming today. We're not streaming this coming week because that's when like Christmas and stuff, and it's just I don't really do Christmas or anything, but I know lots of people do, and I just don't know that it would be super useful to do it this week. And then next week, my sister is visiting. She will be here on Tuesday, and I'm giving her my room to stay in. Um, so I won't have access to my streaming stuff for the Tuesday night stream. Um, and then same thing Wednesday. Uh, she might have headed home by the time my stream is scheduled, but I don't know for sure. We haven't actually locked in our plans that specifically, like to the hour. So she'll probably head out whenever she's feeling ready to head out on Wednesday. But that said, uh, I do have sort of some other stuff going on, and it just ends up working out that I'm not going to be able to stream next week either on Tuesday or Wednesday. So, actually, you know what? So yeah, next stream is the 28th, but let's just I'll just write down what days I'm streaming. So, today, December 21st, Sunday, December 28th, a week from now. Then, then Sunday, January 4th. So just Sundays. And then the next non-Sunday stream will be Tuesday, January 6th. And that's no longer winter break, at least for the school district I'm in. Um, so yeah, that's actually the first stream post break. Oh, and so in fact, let's do it this way. We'll do that. Then we'll do oh, you know what? This is also first school day back. Okay, I think that's what I wanted to know. I was gonna put a little note in here between when school starts up. But actually Tuesday is the first school day back because students at least here have that Monday off. Um, so there we go. That's our winter breaks streaming schedule. Um, oh, go back there. Okay, cool. So yeah, just the Sundays. Oh, so today and the next two Sundays and no other streams. Um, Remember, you can always send your questions in any time at all, and I'll just answer them during the next stream. And if for whatever reason, because I'm not available, I'm only available much fewer days. If I get like a ton of questions and it takes longer than the 2 hours I usually have allotted for my Sunday streams, I'll just extend the stream. I'll just stream longer until I answer all the questions. But right now, I'm not getting any questions, so I don't think that will be a problem. And since I'm not getting any questions and I don't really have any viewers, I know YouTube is, I'm sure, burying these streams. Not that I'm really after an audience. I don't want or need an audience for this. It's for this service is for individuals, and then, but I think people can get a lot out of watching, especially if they're in the same class as the person who asked the question, right? Okay, so there you go. That's the winter break schedule. Um, I wanted to talk about I realized this would be a great place to share my math poems. I'm a writer. Um, I think I think more than like a math tutor, teacher, math person. Um, I think I would like to identify as a writer. I don't like actually identify as a writer by trade or profession or even a little bit by hobby. I'm a hobby writer. Um, but I want to write more. I want to keep getting into it. I've been a writer my whole life. I've loved writing. Um, I've also just happened to have been good at math, so I pursued that. But honestly, when I was in high school and even early on in undergrad, uh, I wanted to be a writer is the main thing I wanted to be. And I still occasionally think about like, should I go back to school to be like a journalist? Um, all right. What am I doing? Ooh, actually, there's a video of me reading this poem. I used to go to these poem nights at a cafe called Kush here in Eugene. It was out I don't think it was quite on Highway 99, but it's like as you're trying to head towards Northwest Expressway and 99 and stuff like that, there's a road. I think it might be First. Um, anyway, as you're heading out that way, There used to be a little cafe called Kush, and it was actually in this pretty big building, and it had like a couple of venues in it. Small, very small venues, but it had a couple of performance spaces. And then one of the performance spaces had a big enough like area beyond it that you and they had couches and chairs set up and just like nice rugs on the like cushy rugs on the floor. And there was actually a pool table in the back and stools and once a week a group of weirdos would get together and there was a poetry night. It was so awesome. I became known for my math poems, and then I started doing this thing where if I didn't already have a poem prepared that I wanted to read that night, I would still sign up, but I would sign up for one of the last slots, and I would take notes while everybody else was doing their poems, and I would while we were there, I would write and revise and write a poem about that evening, about what we heard that evening, about the people who were there. It was so much fun. It was really challenging. And sometimes it was bad. Um, but sometimes it was really good. That was really fun. I do sort of miss that. Um, but that said, um, um, they would live stream the poems on um um they would broadcast the poetry night on YouTube actually. So the VODs existed and then occasionally they'd cut stuff out. Kush Cafe poem. Let's see. I'm trying to see if it's still uh uh so Kush Cafe closed, the poetry night sort of stopped, the person who was running it sort of stopped, somebody else sort of took over, but it's because of that it sort of changed forms, and I think maybe the the YouTube channel might have gotten taken down. Anyway, there used to be a YouTube video of me reading this poem um, that I was going to link to. It's just me from a long time ago. That's a little sad. I should have, and in fact, maybe I did. I might have downloaded that video. I might still have it somewhere in my stuff. Because I didn't actually have any videos of me reading my own poems. But anyway, okay, I can't find it there, so uh, I'll just grab the poem itself. Um, I will give you a language warning. I don't I curse on my stream. So I don't really think that warning is necessarily super useful or relevant, but just. Um, okay. So the context for this is that I wrote this specifically to read at these poetry nights, surrounded by a bunch of people who are interested in reading and listening to poetry, words, lyrics, that sort of stuff, right? Math is math was not inherently nearby while we were there, right? Uh, so yeah, so that's the context, right? Is that I'm reading this poem to a room full of poets. Um, oh, I wanted to link to this. Um, mhm, mhm, mhm. If I Oh, you know what? I don't need to link to it. I'll just copy paste it into the Miro board. That makes sense. Ha ha. Okay. We'll move that down because this is kind of long. Okay. Oh, you know what I can do? I can put this into 2 columns. Let's do that. Okay, and now if I paste. Aha. Excellent. That just tightens everything up a little bit. Okay. So here is my poem titled Math People. Who wants to do Oh wait, no, I'm gonna read it from here though. Just because it's all in order and I won't have to scroll as much. Here, should I here now you can see the whole thing. Because my face is in the way. Um, that's totally okay. I'll sort of scroll it over, and you can go to the notes to read the whole thing yourself. All right, math people. Who wants to do some math? Oh, fuck me. I'm talking to a room of poets, writers. You probably couldn't run fast enough from a quadratic equation, the theorems of Pythagoras. Well, the math found you. It always will. Don't worry, don't tune out. I tame variables on the daily. You ain't the first math phobic folk I've encountered, not even the first today. Truth of the matter is, you're taught to fear that third R, then excused when you do. Oh, you're just not a math person. Don't worry, I'm not either. I've heard a teacher say to a child. Let's just pause on how fucked up that is. I'm not a special breed. These numbers are not my language. I see it for what it is, a symbolic representation of logical truth. Ain't that what we're doing here tonight? Taking some symbols we found and using them to show each other truth? You want to hear something that'll blow your mind? The equations for the force of gravity and the force of electricity are the same fucking equation. That's where the math is, in recognizing the parallel. Your bill for the coffee you bought, that number, we call that a real number. Why? Because there are imaginary numbers. And those imaginary numbers are used to pump all that data to that device in your pocket. Did you know there are different sizes of infinity? That shit changed the world when it hit me. Intrigued at all? Some small bit? Congratulations, you're a math person. Do you feel any different? No? That's because math people are a myth. And that's my poem called Math People. Um, I wrote a series of math poems um, when I was participating in those poetry nights. But yeah, that's my poem about the idea of math people, an idea I detest. There's no such thing as math people. There's no group of people that are so significantly better equipped to deal with math that it makes any real difference. Yeah, different people have different like aptitudes and different natural interests. Um, but math is not out of reach, and mathematical understanding is not out of reach for anyone. What happens is that we take small humans, children, and when they struggle with math and get frustrated and say they don't like it and say they don't want to do it, we basically just tell them okay, and then continue to force them to go through math classes throughout their math career while simultaneously telling them it's okay if you're not good at this. Some people aren't good at math. You'll just be one of those people that did bad at math. And then you can spend the entire rest of your life avoiding math. What a ridiculous premise and idea, right? So you are a math person as much as I'm a math person. You're As a person, you probably have spent far less time trying putting effort into understanding math. You've almost certainly spent far less time being comfortable with math. And so that's what people see in me, and that makes them call me a math person. They see my comfort with math. They see the result of the time and effort I've put in, and then call that call say see that as some inherent reflection in me. I will tell you. I like to tell the story. Um, the the entire reason I'm a math person today, the entire reason I've done all the math I've done, the entire reason such a huge portion of my life has been spent focusing on math is because when I was very young, under 5, like this is pre-kindergarten, right? My mom taught me to count. I learned to count, right? Um, and my mom was willing to just answer questions for me. Um, I I don't have any memories of looking back and remembering my mom telling me to stop asking questions or trying to stop me, like trying to curb my curiosity. All I remember looking back is her answering my questions. Um, and so I learned to count, and then I learned to add. I learned to add numbers before kindergarten. Um, Not because I'm a math prodigy, because I was curious about it. Because when you're that little, everything is so new and pretty much everything is so fascinating. Um, and I just happened to be interested in these ideas of numbers, right? Um, and and then I had my mom in my life who was able to nurture that curiosity. And so I learned to add, and then I don't know exactly when it was. I don't think it was before kindergarten, but it's definitely before you you learn about negative numbers like in school. I don't know when you I can't even think now what the where in like the elementary school curriculum you learn about negative numbers, but it was definitely after when I learned about them because I learned about addition. My mom and people around me taught me how to add. Um, and then they taught me how to subtract. Um, I don't know if it's because subtraction is sort of a very natural thing to come out of knowing how to add, or if they just happen to tell me, since I seem to understand addition, they're like, well, you could also understand subtraction. But it became pretty clear when being taught subtraction the way I was being taught, this idea of takeaway and stuff like that, that like, well, what if you try to take away a bigger number? What if you try to take away more than you have? What if you have, you know, five, I don't remember what I used to learn, but like five quarters in your hand, and you need to subtract 10 quarters, 8 quarters, whatever. And my mom, I'm pretty sure it was my mom, taught me about negative numbers in like first grade or something. I don't even remember when it was. It was quite young, but I knew about negative numbers, and I found that fascinating. There was a number below zero, and it was like this idea of like if you took too much away from a regular number, you ended up in this weird sort of upside down number line, right? Like it's fascinating, especially like think of yourself as like a 6 or a 7-year old, right? Um, and all you know is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the regular counting numbers. And I assume I knew about zero. Um, and then all of a sudden you have this question that arises, and the answer to that question is, oh, there's just more numbers. What? And subtracting a big number from a smaller number is how you get to those numbers. It's the magic spell you do to get to those numbers. Oh man. And that right there, that's why I'm a math person today, is because I had a natural curiosity about numbers that really was just a natural curiosity of youth, of being a child, right? Uh, and I had people who were willing to talk to me about that math, even though they themselves probably weren't that confident about it. Um, but what didn't happen, and this is what could have happened, when I asked, I assume my mom, like that's in my memory, it's my mom, but right, I don't have an actual like specific memory of the events in the conversation or anything. But um when I asked, well, what happens if you take away a bigger number from a smaller number? In school, what you're often taught when you're learning subtraction is you can't do that. You have to do subtraction. You have to do the smaller number from the bigger number. Um, that's what you're I learned that actually learned that in school, and I corrected my teacher. I held up my hand and said, "No, you can. There's negative numbers." And the rest of my class didn't know what I was talking about, and the teacher basically had to tell me, "Yeah, Ryan, that's true, but for right now, we're just doing smaller number from bigger number." I was like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense. We're keeping ourselves from dealing with negative numbers. My teacher isn't telling me they don't exist, even though she did initially sort of try to keep us from worrying about them." Um, but yeah, I just had a curiosity. Anyway, so my mom could have told me that same thing. My mom, when I was little, could have told me, "Oh, you can't subtract a bigger number from a smaller number." And I would have believed her, right? And I would have just gone forward, and eventually I would have had the same experience as every other student who is given the convenient lie that you can't subtract a bigger number from a smaller number until the teachers are ready to teach you about negative numbers, in which case they tell you, "Oh yeah, remember how we told you you couldn't do that? You actually can." Um, I hated those moments when I was going through school when teachers would tell us, "Hey, remember that thing we told you? It's actually not true. We just didn't want you to ask inconvenient questions." Um, and that's all it is. And it happens in math a lot, and in other subjects as well. Uh, you're told you can't take the square root of a negative number. You can absolutely take the square root of a negative number. Um, you're told there's nothing bigger than infinity. Um, it depends on the infinity. Like there are infinities bigger than infinity. Um, what do you mean by infinity? Infinity isn't just one thing, actually. Uh, just all sorts of stuff. they tell you you can't do a thing, or this, we do things specifically this way and not this other way, when that's not true. It's just for their purposes in teaching you. Anyway, all of that is to say, that's what led to me being a math person. It's just nobody shooing me away from math, and people being willing to give me the actual answers to my questions, not the answers that are convenient for them to give, the answers that don't trouble them to have to explain a hard thing. It wasn't revolutionary, it wasn't radical, it was just very normal. And I think every single student could experience that, but unfortunately doesn't. And we've created a society and a culture that, in fact, makes what I experience less likely, and what most other people experience the common experience. I am live on YouTube. Thank you. All right, let's check for question submissions, shall we? Okay, I don't see any questions come in. I do see that we had a visitor at one point. I see one view, though that may have been me. So the other thing, and we're into our second hour now. The other thing I wanted to talk about today. Oh, and there's a whole bunch of stuff in this poem. Not a whole bunch. There's several things in this poem that we could totally talk more about. The fact that the force of gravity and the force of electricity are the same equation. Imaginary numbers, and the fact that they're used in wireless transmission and electrical engineering and things like that. I guess those are the two main little bits of math knowledge I dropped in there. Yeah. Okay. I was just looking through it to see if there's anything else of curiosity. Yeah, the equation for the force of gravity and the force of electricity, they're the same equation. They just have different symbols in them that obviously represent different quantities, but that's not the point. An equation is a relationship between values, and electricity, the components of electricity have the same relationship as the components of gravity, because they are both forces. And in fact, all forces, of which there are four: gravity, electromagnetism, which is electricity, and magnetism are a single force, that can be split up, or it has multiple pieces to it. And then there's the weak atomic force, and there's the strong atomic force. The weak and strong forces we don't really perceive on a daily basis. They have an impact on our daily lives, but we don't interact with them, and we don't have any way just by ourselves to exert a strong force or a weak force. Whereas the electromagnetic force, you can turn on a flashlight and shine a light. You can move a magnet around, or you can even create a magnet. And then of course the gravitational force, that one's harder for us to manipulate, but we do deal with it and understand it on a daily basis. Even if you don't understand it mathematically, you can throw a ball and have it land somewhere near where you were aiming because you understand how gravity works. Um, okay, that's math, people. And I would be happy to go more into any of those specific things. And I definitely, we should definitely talk about imaginary numbers. Um, so the other thing I thought could be interesting to talk about, I was chatting with some of my friends this weekend. This weekend was every other weekend we do a game weekend. Um, and this weekend, while people were over, we were talking a bit about the economics of Game Pass. Um, um, and I wanted to dive more into it. Um, so let's just get the basics first. Um, and actually talked about what is the economy, what is economics. Um, in the last stream, was it just the very last stream? It was. I just chat like obviously I didn't write down any notes. I just sort of chatted off the cuff and um sort of just like not brainstorming necessarily, but just getting my mind thinking about it and putting it to words, right? Because I've been churning it over in my head, but until you start to actually put it to specific words, it's kind of amorphous. But anyway, so when I say the economics of Game Pass, I just sort of mean how what I'm trying to get at here is um how does Game Pass, or what is that's what I'm trying to say. Well, see, this is why it's useful to put things to work, because I feel like I know what I mean in my head, but now that I'm trying to put it to specific words, I'm realizing that I'm not sure what I mean specifically, or at least I haven't taken this idea that feels important and meaningful in my head, but I haven't clarified it. And this is such an important exercise, right? We have all sorts of ideas in our head, and because they sit in our heads and they bounce around and they just sit there for a long time, we start to feel like we understand something, but we haven't actually thought through the specific logics and connections and the relationships and between the ideas and stuff like that. And so it can leave you with sort of a feeling that's kind of amorphous, but you've been thinking about it a lot, so you sort of tend to start to trust the feeling. And yeah, but really it's really good and necessary to take those thoughts and make them into and help figure out what your specific thoughts and ideas are, so you can actually work through them. um so the economics of Game Pass, what do I mean by that? We're trying to talk about here is the what are the financial incentives actually, you know what, not just financial incentives. What are the financial and so we talked about last time when I talked about what the economy is. The economy is the production, distribution, and consumption of 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 a limited resource of some variety. Whether that's a natural resource, like even water, right? We don't all have, if you ignore plumbing, right, and water being pumped to us, right, that's the distribution. Without that, most people would not have access to all of the water they need. like right nearby to them. At least not that was safe, that was always available, right? And so we've created an economy around water. There are people and there are companies who extract the water, which is sort of the production. That's the production of the water that's going to be sold. They extract it from the environment. They then distribute it through infrastructure, the various water pipes, and and all this sort of sewage and all the water infrastructure. And then there's the consumption, us, when we get the water and use it. Um, so I'm going to say financial. So financial money comes in, and money is sort of this weird sort of cloak around those three things. You can assign a monetary value to the production. There's a production cost, there's a distribution cost, but there's also in that distribution and even in the production, there's some people paying money and there's some people earning money. And then at the consumption, we pay money and then we finally consume the product. And so there's an exchange of money throughout the whole thing, but money itself, there is an economy of cash, of money, of dollars. And so these two economies interplay with each other. So when you talk about the financial aspects, it's sort of a way of talking about some of the other aspects, but it's very strange. I do want to talk about the financials because you can't, especially with something like Game Pass, which is a weird thing that's like it's like a service, right? So the thing that's being produced is the games that are on Game Pass. Yeah, so that it's a weird. The economics of Game Pass are ultimately weird. So I'm just going to leave that as what it is. Let's not try. I'm not going to bother. Well, I did say it felt important to do that. So, like, what are our questions? What is Game Pass offering to gamers and publisher developers? What does Microsoft get out of it? There we go. Okay, I like this. I stopped focusing on the money part. That I think this is a mistake people make when they talk about economics. They only focus on the money, and money is the grease that allows the economic engine to keep turning. It helps the economy from hitching. It keeps the cogs of the economy turning. But money is not the economy. Money is a resource, and so an economy has emerged around cash, around the currency. But I would argue that's bad. Kind of inevitable, but ultimately bad. Because the economy is actually about all the things that the money buys, and about getting them from where they start off to the people who are going to consume them. So let's not focus on the money. The money's not important. It's going to come up. It's a common unit that's relevant to every part of this, and so we will talk about it, but it's not our focus. Yeah. Okay. So instead, when I want to talk about the economics of Game Pass, what I want to talk about is what is Game Pass offering to gamers, the consumers, and publisher developers who are ultimately the producers of the product that Game Pass is selling. But what Game Pass is selling is access, right? It's kind of strange. So, let's look. What does Xbox Game Pass? What does it say on the tin? Okay, here we go. So we're starting off. Here's some marketing material, but this is in the US. You have to be at least somewhat um, truthful in your advertising, but there's a lot of there's a wide range of what can be regarded as truthful and what is just sort of the embellishment of advertising or whatever. But yeah, so Game Pass. Enjoy a library of hundreds of games to play on your devices. Plans start at $13.99 a month. Join for $1. So the benefits here: play hundreds of games, access a growing library of console and PC games with new games added each month. Play on your devices, so lots of devices, and then benefits and rewards, which is just sort of value add stuff they throw in to make you feel like you're getting a better deal. So let's look at what are the actual costs here. Okay, so this is okay. Here is here. I'm gonna get rid of that because I think this is more relevant. Here's the pricing structure. This is where we've got to start, right? So, yeah, we got to start. Maybe not. I don't know. But what we can see, different plans. So for that lower price of basically $14 a month, do they offer yearly plans? Okay, I do not see. And they do have a PC only plan, but I'm not going to worry about that. Okay, I do not see, unless once you click in, if it lets you switch to yearly. It wants me to sign in. Okay. Okay. So I don't see a way to pay yearly. So first of all, let's just right off the bat, let's figure out what this is a year. $13.99 a month. That is $167.88 a year. $17.99, that brings us up to $215.88. And then finally the $33.99, which is wow. That is $407.88. Okay. I am gonna call this. Okay, when I refer to these later, I'm gonna call this 168. This is the actual number, but we'll just deal with it as is. Okay. So it appears the basic benefit for consumer. Appears to be access to curated game library for monthly fee. You trade some dollars every month, and now it's as if you, it's basically as if you own, at least, in terms of being able to play whenever you want, so long as you have internet access. Well, no, because you can download these games. You have access to all of these games. How much is it per game then of the games you have access to? So I actually want to do that. And all of them, as soon as you sign up, you turn on automatic billing, which for people that want to continue the service is ultimately a convenience, but it does sort of lock you in. And because of that, I mean, it doesn't lock you in, but it does mean if you are just getting it for a month, which I can totally see some people are, they're like, hey, I have less going on this month. I want to check out some video games I've been meaning to check out for, say, $14, if the video games you want to check out are amongst that pretty limited library. So let's see. How many dollars is that per game? Let's just say per month, right? So $13.99 divided by 50. That is 0. And that's 28 cents per game per month. Assuming you play all of the games, which you won't. Even if it's just a 50 game library, you will not play all 50 of those games each month that you have the subscription. I doubt. Maybe there's somebody out there that that's a priority for them. And then actually it probably gets a little better from there if we do $17.99 divided by 200. That gets down to 9 cents a game. Right? So that for that monthly price, you're paying not even quite 10 cents per game. But again, that's only relevant if you're playing all the games. And now at 50, that was already super unlikely. 200 plus games, absolutely not going to happen. 400, so maybe if you look at it over the course of the year, and you can see it's just over $1, $215 for just under 200 games, or sorry, somewhat over 200 games. So that's going to be a little bit more than $1. This right here is going to be roughly $3 a year per game, right? Maybe over the course of the year, you'll play all the games. I still don't think so. Even the 50, I still don't think you will. And then 200, 400, still almost not going to happen. And this is even closer to $1 per game per year. Let's see, let's do the 33 over 400. And that actually still works out. Actually, it works out to 8 cents per game per month. But I think it could be useful to talk about it per year. Okay. This is 336 per game per year. Again, I'm finishing this off. I don't think this is a good metric. Because nobody $8 game per month. And then finally, almost down to an even dollar. Okay, so what I'm trying to demonstrate here is there's a whole bunch of different ways to investigate this, right? This is one thing we can talk about. I don't think it's the best way to talk about it though, because really this amount, what we actually need to divide by is how many games you actually play, right? So one thing we could look at is what do or like how does the subscription cost compare to just buying buying titles. Okay, so Xbox, Microsoft ultimately wants you to sign up for Ultimate. Right, that's what's going to make them the most money because you're giving them the most money, right? And you can see it's almost double the price for double the games, so not terrible in terms of those numbers. Um, ba, ba, ba. And then yeah, they have all of these extra things, these benefits, and so that could sway the value of this for certain players, um, certain consumers. So let's look at. I want to look at the games that have just come out to Game Pass as sort of our sample, so we can sort of get a point of comparison, right? Because games of the current generation cost either $70 or $80 new for like AAA titles. But not all games on Game Pass are AAA titles. Not all games on Game Pass would actually cost $70 or $80 to buy. Some of them are $40 games. Some of them are $20 games. So let's actually look at what has come to Game Pass recently. Recently added. Okay. Who would most popular be? Let's just go new. So I'm gonna ignore free-to-play games. Hmm. The benefit of buying Xbox Live with free-to-play games is you can play them online, even though the game is free for you to download, you couldn't play it on console, at least, unless you pay for their online thing, and for Xbox, the only online thing they offer anymore is Game Pass. I think right now I have this thing called Game Pass Core or something that doesn't it gives you access to, like they have, like, a token list of, like, a dozen games, um, but it's the minimum thing you can buy to get access to online multiplayer. And I play I play, like, uh, freaking Minecraft online with, like, my partner and, because you oh, that's what's frustrating. You have to have Game Pass if you wanna join a LAN game. So even if somebody's playing on the same network, my partner is playing in the same, uh, building, the same house as me, um, we're on the same network, and yet to connect to their world, I still have to have Xbox Live, or Game Pass. Um, anyway, that's a whole thing. Um, so I'm grabbing the first, I'm gonna say 5 games that aren't free to play. No, don't make me sign in. I'm trying to look at this information. Okay, I'm gonna have to cross-reference this with the Xbox store. Here we go. Okay. Ba, ba, ba. Gotta do. Son of a gun. How? Oh, store? Shop games? Okay, does this have a search? You have got to be kidding me. Oh my god, what a pain in the butt. Sorry, y'all. Their freaking website is just awful for. I mean, they don't want you to do research, is the thing. Okay. Tell me the freaking price. This is nuts. It won't. In order to see the price, I have to sign in. This feels like it should be illegal. It feels like they should have to show you the price. Xbox price. That's all I want is the price. Let's look on Steam. Steam will at least tell you what the price is. It's free to play. Okay, maybe that's part of why. So maybe it will tell me the price. Okay, so there's a second free to play game. Here's the thing. Free to play games don't add any value to so I mean I could count these and actually they would sort of count against the value of so actually, you know what I will do then? Um so let's do this. Okay? Fortnite. 0. That's how much value you're getting, how much value Fortnite adds to Xbox Game Pass. Other than the fact that it lets you play online, but we're not again, we're not considering that because they used to offer a service that was just that you could pay just for that's what Xbox Live Gold used to be. Or maybe even Xbox Live Silver may have offered online play just without any of the other benefits or whatever. I forget. Okay. Regardless, there's this other game called Terminal Brigade. This also adds $0 of value to Game Pass. Okay. What about Marvel Cosmic Invasion? Oh. Okay, here we go. $30. Recently added. Here we go. Game Pass. Browse games. I need to find my way back to where I was. Okay. This one is $30 of value. Nope. Sort by recently added. There we go. I'm looking at, and I'm also looking at Game Pass Ultimate games. Right, so that biggest library. Okay, this one is $20. This is $30, and it's also early access. It's a preview, so it's not even a finished game. Okay. So these are 5 games. 5 of the most recent games on Game Pass Ultimate, right? Which is just, this is sort of a random time for me to do this. This is, this is a somewhat random selection of new release titles. To be really thorough with this, we'd want to do this several times, maybe track it over the course of the year, look at the entire library maybe. But what I wanted to point out was this is a $80 value. How many games do you play in a month? How many Xbox Game Pass games would you play in a month? You have a library of 400 plus titles, it says. How many would you actually play in a month, though? How many are you only playing because you have access to them for free? You wouldn't buy them, even though you're enjoying them. Even after having played them, if you stop signing up for Game Pass, you still wouldn't spend the money to buy them. This is also a weird example because, yeah, modern AAA games are like $70, $80 a pop. And that really bumps that value up. So this is approximately the price of a single AAA title. So for that $80 value, let's just say 80 over I'm going to call it $34, right? This is Ultimate. This is Game Pass. Ultimate. Right, that's going to be a little over 2. Uh, 2.35, 2.4. So, oh, oops, I did this. Hold on a sec. I did this division in reverse. We want to take the Is that how I want to do it? Oh, actually, I think what we want to look at is the average here. So it's 80 total divided by the 5 that we have here. That's 18. No, sorry, 16. $16 average per title. Okay, and now that average is what we want to so now if we take that 34 and divide it by 16, right, and that's Game Pass Ultimate. This is that average. So it's like, and we take that, it's going to be a little over 2. This is not much over 2. Yeah, two and an eighth. So we can interpret this number as this is average number of games. This is what I'm going to call the what's a good way to summarize this? This is equivalent game buying power. So you could buy for the same cost, for that same $34 a month you're spending, you could buy 2 games a month of equivalent sort of value, right? We have 2 $30 titles, 1 $20 title, and 2 free-to-play titles here. Now, granted, you couldn't afford any AAA titles this way, right? If a AAA title is $70, it would actually take you 2 months of that, and actually a little bit more, but we'll just round it up and say that $34. If you didn't spend that and saved it for 2 months, you could then afford 1 title. So it seems, and so we can say, if I was going to write out AAA. If a AAA title is $70, and honestly, that's conservative now, right? We've seen game prices going up and up and up. Is $70, then it would take 2 months of Game Pass to purchase. So that's 1 title. You have to save up for 2 months, and you get that 1 AAA game, and you can play that AAA game now because you own it. Granted, again, we're not considering the fact that if it's an online game, you'll still have to pay for some version of Xbox Live. So, which is a value add, right? But that's part of why they do it. They make the service itself have a base cost. And so I'm going to be paying that anyway. If it costs $10 minimum, which is I think what it is now, $9.99, to just get access to online play on Xbox Live, then that means you can effectively subtract $9.99, $10 from the cost of this. It's actually only $23.99 to get all of the extra stuff, to get all of the extra games, because you're going to pay for the online access anyway. Even if you were just buying the games, you still want to be able to play them online. So you're still going to pay at least that $10. So here's the thing though. So that means every 2 months, that means 6 AAA titles, right? So this is 6. So Game Pass Ultimate is worth 6 AAA titles per year. So here's the thing. If you would buy, so actually I'm going to write this out too. If you would buy and play 6 different AAA games per year then Game Pass Ultimate is, I'm going to write it as is a good value. Okay. If you would buy and play 6 different AAA games per year, if that's your reality, if you would already or are already or were already doing that, then Game Pass Ultimate seems like it's a pretty good deal. If those 6 AAA games are on Game Pass Ultimate, library of 400 games, it's a better probability, but there are always going to be some games that aren't going to come to Game Pass, right? What's the game I've been wanting to play? Baldur's Gate 3. When Baldur's Gate 3 came out a year ago, 2 years ago now, longer than that. When did Baldur's Gate 3 come out? 2023. Yeah, it was a couple of years ago. August 3rd, 2023. So just over 2 years ago. It came out, right? And it was $70 for the base game. And I was like, oh my God, I can't afford that. I can't drop $70 on and like I don't spend a ton of time playing video games, right? I have a hard time giving myself the time to play video games. I like them. I want to play them. I just don't. Okay, this is the consumer side of it. I think next Sunday, next stream, I want to start looking into this, and this is all stuff I already vaguely knew. This is the vague stuff that was inside my head that I want to get some specifics to. I want to look so we can see, yeah, there is a place for a certain type of gamer, where Game Pass Ultimate is a good deal. If there are 6 different AAA games come out that you're excited about, that you want to play, then even if some additional games come out that aren't on Game Pass, you've already sort of saved some amount of money by using Game Pass, and it makes that other AAA game that's not on Game Pass, a little bit easier of a justification, right? You've only, in that case, you've only bought the one game that year. Downside is you don't own these games. You won't have access to them forever. Once you stop paying for Game Pass, you lose access. If Xbox decides, or however the licensing works, and that's what I want to look at next time, is how this all works for the producers, for the studios and the publishers. Once that license, the release on the Game Pass license expires, it gets removed from Game Pass, and you don't have access to it anymore. You would have to. Sorry, somebody just rang our doorbell. It's probably just. No, it's Sunday. Why would you do that? Hey, Lisa. Open next door. All right, cool. Thank you so much. Have a good day. All right. Sorry about that. Yeah, it was a neighbor. Okay. Anyway, we're past time here. I have other things I want to get to. This is a good initial dive in. The initial sort of, you have these things you want to talk about, these ideas, things you want to investigate, and it can be a little intimidating. It can be a little confusing to when you start off. You know, where do you even start? And that's what I'm sort of trying to demonstrate here is how to sort of investigate this sort of stuff. Um, and we're following the numbers. So yeah, next time, which I guess will be next Sunday, I want to look at okay, what is this? How does Microsoft convince publishers and developers to release their games on Game Pass? How do they convince the people who make the games to give Microsoft's little group of subscribers access to their games without paying directly for them? There's got to be some sort of like sharing of the subscription, right? But like, how is that beneficial to the producers, right? Because yeah, anyway, there's just questions there. How does it make sense for them? And also, especially for like these small developers, like that $20 game, what do they get out of being on Xbox or on a Game Pass specifically? I'm just very curious about it. So that, excuse me, that will be next Sunday. Good stuff. All right. Well, I think I'm going to sign off of here. And tell you all have a great happy holidays. Enjoy your winter break. Please, as you're working on your math homework, I know maybe especially this week, you're probably not working on any school at all. I kind of hope you're not working, but if the timing is right for you, if it makes sense to work on stuff this week, please send me any questions you have. I will absolutely answer them. I will respond and send you links to where you can see my responses. If you want to watch it live, I'll be live again next Sunday at 11 a.m. PST. I'm on the West Coast. So yeah, have an excellent week, excellent rest of your Sunday. I'll see you guys in a week. Bye.